Hi, I'm Elizabeth Mendenhall, and this is a series on strategic planning and different ways that you can improve your association. And today I want to talk about organizational documents because they are all important and they are so important in understanding the organization and the flow of an association and how you can advance it forward. I heard a quote, and I wish I right now could attribute it to who it was to, and it was about the fact that if you communication, the best form of communication is saying something and then having somebody write it down and repeat it in writing back to you. And then you really know whether or not someone understood it. And the same thing goes with organizations. If it's not in writing, it's really hard for everyone to then understand and see and kind of put together all of those thoughts and the direction for an organization to kind of move forward. So a couple of organizational documents that we know we have to have and we know we do have are bylaws and budget, right? Those are givens. Those are things that are going to happen, part of what makes a corporation and an organization and association thrive, and really requirements as far as audits go and things like that. So taking those aside, let's talk about four more documents that an organization should have, an association should have, and as we're planning as realtors are really, really important. First, of course, it's the strategic planning. It's what always we know. It's part of our core standards. It's part of what we need for an organization. It sets our vision. It sets that organizational alignment so that everybody can be behind the goals and those big, big values. Those values that are really important to our association. And it's the things where we know that member engagement is important to our association. So we're going to focus on how we do with that. That advocacy is important. That we've got, again, strategic vision on where we're headed into the future, nimble, that our technology is up to speed. Those are those big, big thoughts. But from there, sometimes as realtor volunteers, that's when we start to get a little frustrated, a little wonky, and where we might try to incorporate into a strategic plan, maybe there's other places for some of the things that we know we want. Because as business owners and as entrepreneurs, and a lot of times we're single entrepreneurs, or maybe we're operating a team or we're operating a business, we know that we do need a little bit more structure in order to move the organization forward. But it doesn't always exist in the strategic plan. So let me talk about document number 2, and that's what I'm going to call a management plan. This is the plan that most of the time I see most frequently where people want to combine a management plan and a strategic plan. So while strategic plan are those big, big items, they're your big rocks of the association. It's things that you're looking towards the future that you want to have accomplished. The management plan is really those measurables. It's the nuts and the bolts of how you get things done. So think about this for a listing presentation. Okay, we've gone on listing presentations. We're realtors. We know what that looks like. When we go out, what is the number one objective that a seller has? To get the home sold. To get the home sold. Number one goal, number one vision. They want to get the most money they can out of it. They want to get it in the time that they want to get it sold. They want to get it sold with the terms that they want and with the least hassle and the flexibility that they have as far as setting the closing dates. That's the strategic vision, right? That is a strategic vision. The management plan now starts to come in some of the other details, some of the little things that we're going to do along the way. So for example, you're going to the MLS, right? Of course you are. You're going to make sure that, within a certain time frame, you have pictures uploaded and you've got pictures uploaded when you put it into the MLS, right? And then maybe you've got a social media marketing plan that you're going to talk about that has, day 10, this is going to happen, and day 20, this is going to happen. But generally, that's not the information that you're sharing when you go on the listing appointment, because that's your management plan for your business. That's your systems, your checklists, your nuts and bolts. So you can go back and you can see if those things happen. And who do you rely on for those things to happen? Well, sometimes if you are a real estate agent, you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're doing everything. And so a lot of times when we get into association leadership, we want to do everything because that's our role. We're used to doing everything. But guess what? We have a CEO. We have a CEO. Maybe we don't have that in our normal business. And that's part of the CEO's job, is to help spell out that management plan with those measurables, with those nuts and bolts, going over it with their staff, figuring out who's going to do which items in the timeline that they're going to do it. And that becomes more of a different management plan. Now, sometimes when we're sitting in strategic planning, we're saying, you know what, we come up with these big ideas and then I never know if they're going to happen. Well, that takes me into the third document that every good organization should have. and that's job descriptions. Job descriptions, not only for the staff, but for the volunteers, right? So if I'm hiring somebody, I need a job description. I need to know, what does their job entail? Great example. If I'm going to hire a CFO, a chief financial officer, a bookkeeper, somebody to do my books, I want a clean audit. Well, a clean audit, sometimes, and just from experience, I've seen, a clean audit in a strategic plan. Well, it's not a strategic planning item. Of course you want a clean audit. You're not going to have a good organization if you don't have a clean audit. A clean audit is a job description for someone. That's not part of a strategic plan, because that's something you're going to do year after year after year. But what sometimes happens is, if we're not clear on the job descriptions, then we lose trust. We lose trust in the process. We lose trust in the CEO. We lose trust in the leadership. And so we come into strategic planning and we say, I want measurables, I want actions, I want timelines associated with all these things. But really, those are the things that belong throughout other pieces of the organization. So once the management plan's done, right, and we've got a CEO who's outlined how things are going to happen with their staff and when they're going to do things. Now we've got job descriptions that says, okay, somebody's going to be responsible for getting the money right. Somebody's going to be responsible for turning the RPAC dollars in. Somebody's going to be responsible for communications, because that's not a volunteer job. That's a staff person job. Now comes real important, the job descriptions for the volunteers. And guess what the number one job description of the volunteers and of the leadership team is? It's to evaluate the CEO, who evaluates the staff. And so where's that accountability piece? That accountability piece exists in the officers of the association, of making sure that those measurables were met, making sure that the strategic plan was advanced. That's part of the job of the leadership team. That's not necessarily the job of the strategic planning committee. It's part of the job of the leadership team. So hopefully the strategic planning committee can leave strategic planning with the confidence in knowing, and the officers, that it is the job of the officers to advance the strategic plan. It is the job of the CEO and the staff to create the action items that advance the strategic plan and the measurables. And then that goes to the last piece of our organizational documents, which is critically important, and that's committee purposes. And that is utilizing the volunteers and the resources and the people resources that we have in our organization to get these things done, so that it doesn't feel that it's top down. It feels like it's bottom up, and it feels like members can participate and be a part of this strategic plan and have commitment to the plan, and then are part of advancing the plan forward. So it doesn't just feel like it came from the leadership and the strategic planning committee. So that committee purpose then becomes a critical item of saying, yay, guess what? You're the ones now who are going to go raise that RPAC money to go make us be the best PAC that we are in our state, to go raise the most PAC dollars that we want, to have them, a 20% increase in member participation, which we identified, is important at our state advocacy days. And now the committees get to have that buy-in. But if they don't have a purpose, then the question is, what are they doing? They're thinking they're going to invent things, but a purpose that ties into action items on the strategic plan, visioning that ties into knowing which committee can accomplish some of those certain items, then having the staff be behind it and saying, hey, guess what? This is our job description to do these. Because job descriptions are never written in stone, never for the volunteers and never for the staff. Things are continually changing. And we certainly know that here, being in the year of 2020. I would guarantee that any strategic plan who had measurables and timelines and all sorts of things got thrown out the window in 2020 came, because we had to be nimble, we had to be innovative, we had to be creative, and we had to be member-centric. Those are those high strategic items. And if we all agree to those strategic items, then we can adjust accordingly when we all know our job descriptions and our purposes within the framework. So there's a lot of different ways to approach strategic planning. Some of it depends upon the size of your association. Some of it depends upon the leadership and volunteers that are available with your association. Certainly can depend upon the staff resources and the budget. But if you don't set that strategic and vision and goals, You never know what you need to accomplish the goals of the Realtor Association and to be absolutely amazing. So I say go for it. I say if you're a volunteer, own it, own your part in the process, and own your part of understanding that everybody plays a different role and nobody can play all of the roles.